Well, hello, good evening, everybody. Here we are in the infamous week 5 of Advanced Programming with Java. Um, as I was saying right before the recording started, um, the second half of the course is different from the first half of the course. In the first half of the course, the things that we learn about fundamental object-oriented programming, how to work with, a lot of the built-in APIs that come with Java, whether it's the collection classes or I/O or the dates and the date formatting and all that kind of stuff. That's all very fundamental things. That's about learning the language, it's about learning the APIs. And the projects that you do are the kinds of things that uh, you expect to see in like the lower division of a computer science program, where it's like, okay, great, command line stuff, and it's the logic is comparably straightforward, and there aren't a lot of moving parts. In the second half of the course, things start getting a little bit more interesting because we're moving beyond a simple command line tool that's one program that starts in one place and ends in another place, to having, in the case of Project 4, we have a distributed system that has a client and a server. And in Project 5, when we work with Android, we'll be having a rich user interface that then interacts with, interacts with the Java classes. We'll save Android for next time, because here's what I want to do tonight. Let's start off with Prime Minister's questions. So then I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you all have, questions actually, and receive feedback that you have on the work that you've done so far. I know Project 3, lots of good questions right up until the end. People figuring it out, talking about various conditions, exploring, what can happen with the pretty printing program. And also some, beginnings of explorations with Project 4. Um, and so then I'm happy to answer some questions here at the beginning, but what we're going to focus on tonight is in two parts. First, we're going to dive more into Project 4, and what I'd like to do is actually start modifying the application to make it to go from that out-of-the-box dictionary application that is created when you run the create script to something that begins to look a little bit like an appointment. A couple people ask about, like, how do I get started? Okay, well, I'll help you all get started by showing you how I would get started. And along the way, we'll explore the various pieces and parts. We'll look at how the unit tests with mock objects test the servlet. We'll look at how to modify that appointment book client to then work with the servlet in integration tests. Don't know if we'll get to the command line. You all know how to do command lines. But really exploring the various parts so that hopefully you can get a better idea of how the project is laid out, of where you're going to modify the code. So we'll spend about 90 minutes doing that. Then the rest of the time, we'll be working in mobs, doing mob programming. And so then you've gotten some experience in the last couple of weeks doing pair programming, where to see what it's like with one other person in a group. Well, tonight you'll be working with 4 or 5 other people in a mob. And we'll talk more about that, again, after we've talked about Project 4, after we've definitely had a break between the two. But first, let's start off with Prime Minister's questions. If you have a question, if you have something you'd like to either ask me or tell me, please raise your hand in Zoom, and I'll call on you. Stunned silence. Yes, Matthew.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So I had a question about command line parsing, because that seems to have been like the funnest part of the last few programs, is dealing with all the different orders and possibilities. Is there, I know I was reading up on something, and there's like a command line, I guess, library or extension or something. Like, is there like a more generic solution than fumbling through it, or does everybody sort of just come up with their own way that works best for them and sort of stick with it?
It's a good question. In every language any language that deals with a command line, there are libraries out there that purport to make it easier to implement your command line parsing, and not just command line parsing, but also help information, error handling, all of that good stuff. And I don't know if I called it out in the beginning of the course, but yes, in the real world, you would most likely use one of those. Part of the assignment, though, and part of exploring the Java language is implementing the logic of the command line parsing. So that's why it's there in the first, actually, I guess first 4 assignments, there's still command line parsing in the 4th one, but you're all old hat at that by now and probably have some pretty good patterns in mind. So, like many things, yep, in the real world, there are tools out there that may or may not make it easier. In this class, you get to use a lot of those third-party tools. Certainly, hey, you didn't have to write your own, linked list, right? That's something good. You got to use somebody else's list or collections object. But here, command line parsing is something that I want you to explore and learn on your own. But yeah, in the real world, you'd probably use something else.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Oh, there was a question that came to me in a DM. I wonder if we have pair or mob programming today. Today it is mob programming, so we will be doing that. And just as to recall, just like with the pair programming, there'll be an opportunity to mob this week and an opportunity to mob next week. Sorry, am I still sharing my screen? I couldn't tell.
Yeah, it's on the class page.
Okay,
I
good.
can see it.
Okay, I just couldn't tell from my view. We'll have an opportunity to pair program this week and next week. You must attend one of these sessions to participate in at least one mob programming activity to then inform the reflection quiz that is then due on August 4th, the week after that. Any other questions? Feedback on Project 3? Any observations, learnings, ahas?
I heard something about a midpoint reflection. Is that something we're doing?
Yeah, it's the midterm survey right here.
Oh,
I'm curious about your experiences with the course so far, and so much so that I ask you to write about them, and it's worth a quiz grade. So there aren't right or wrong answers. Well, there might be some answers involving a certain choice 4-letter words that I wouldn't accept, but otherwise, no, I'm generally curious about what you think of the course so far.
I have a question about Project 4.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to, when someone calls get on the URL with the start time and end time parameters, we're supposed to give them all the appointments that are within that range. I assume that means appointments that start or end within that range.
Let's double check. Let's see here. Make it a little bigger. Sorry, I got two windows here. This is that URL. Returns all the given appointment books appointments that occurred between that and that. And I think also down here I have an example. You know what? No, it's just begin.
Okay.
2 times.
Yes. Okay. I will. Thank you.
Yep.
We talked earlier in the office hours about the mid-class survey. I can't actually find it on D2L.
Does the link on the course homepage work?
Let's see. Go to.
It's 'cause some surveys are sometimes buried off in a different section. I thought it showed up in the calendar view, though. Maybe it doesn't.
Is it technically a survey or technically a quiz? Because previously,
a survey.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the survey list and it says there are currently no surveys available.
It might have closed at 5:30.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot to do it before class.
Okay, I'll open it up again at the first break.
Okay.
Give
Thank you.
everybody another couple hours to finish it. Yep. So, it doesn't show up in the. For the people that did do it, how did you find it? Did it show up in the calendar on D2L? I have to admit, I am not an expert at D2L by any means.
It was in the survey section for D2L, and I clicked through the week 5
Okay, so you
link.
saw it on the website. Yeah. So many tools. Okay. Any other questions before we dive into some of the Project 4 implementation?
Yeah, sorry, just one more thing then. That begin between, is that inclusive or exclusive? What do you call it? Inclusive or
Let's just say inclusive. I'm not going to test that close.
okay, cool.
Yeah, but yeah, no, good call. Nice. Actually, okay, so those participants, I'll keep chat open though. Okay, Project 4. Now, last time we set up the code for Project 4. I'm not going to review that. So, if you haven't had a chance to run the Create Project 4 script yet, please refer to last time's lecture to get details there. I'm not going to go through all that process again, but I did want to sort of show off everything that happened because a lot of information went by last time, and of course it's been a week, right? And everybody's been focused on other things. So, PSU get one stage Java summer 1 and AppointmentBookRestClient. Okay, so Project 4 is a web application. And so we'll see all about the Servlet API and everything like that. But what makes Project 4 different than your other projects is that you're dealing with two programs that talk to each other. And you have your web server, which you start up and it just runs and stays there. And it waits for a client to connect to it and ask it to do things. Ask it for information, ask it to create new data. And when we run the web server, we do that with a tool called Jetty. Jetty is an open source implementation of the Java servlet standard interface. So it provides all of that stuff. And so when you run Maven Jetty :run, Jetty is the name of the Maven plugin, and run is the goal, the command that you send to that plugin. It starts up Jetty, and it says that it's running on port 8080. And so then if you go to your browser and you go to the machine localhost 8080, if you just go to the top level thing, it basically says Jetty is like, hey, there's nothing at the top level, but I can give you this application called Appointment Book. That's what we want. So our Appointment Book web application is deployed into Jetty with the root URL of /AppointmentBook. I have that application configured to serve up this index.html file. This is actually a file that a couple years ago one of my students wrote and said, "Hey, I found this to be helpful when I was developing the application. Feel free to use it." I said, "Oh, thanks, cool." Because at least at the time, there were people were interested and experienced with HTML forms, and that is another way to interact with the application is through an HTML form. Although to be clear, this is not a required part of the assignment. So it is there to help people that understand forms. It's a way to sort of develop a client to your application, but it's not something that is submitted, and it's not something that you are required to do by any means. What's required is that you work on a command line application that interacts with your server, but it helps us demo things. Out of the box, when you create your Project 4, you have an application that manages a dictionary of words, right? Key value pairs in a map. And so you can interact with it in different ways. So, for instance, you can create a new mapping, a new definition pair, and I always use doe, deer, female, deer, just in case this wasn't already going through your head. So what you can do is use this HTML form to create a mapping. And when you click submit, what it does is it does an HTTP post off to your servlet, and then makes a mapping between the word doe and the definition deer, female, deer. There are other things that you can do with the application. For instance, you can just list all of the word definition pairs. And what this does is an HTTP GET to this URL. It's simply AppointmentBook /appointments. So I don't, so right now what appointments are word definitions, but this returns all of the, all of the values there. Similarly, you can look up just a single word. And what that does is it goes to a URL, which is appointments word equals dough. Now, I didn't really go into the details of all the stuff about the URL. There's information about that in the lecture notes, which I hope you've had a chance to review. But the way this works is the URL has a host, a port, a location of what's called a resource on at that on that host and port, and then it has what are called query parameters that you can send to it here. And query parameters are always these key value pairs, right? Key equals value. I don't know how much you all have sort of just like figured out about these things just by using the web, or maybe have learned about it on your own, or maybe you've taken a course where you've talked about these kinds of things. I can never tell. I mean, of course, everybody uses the internet, but I was just thinking about it today. When I was in college many years ago now, that's sort of like when general people started using the internet. And so for me, like when I was a student, this was like state of the art. This is really cool. This is like what everybody got excited about and jazzed about, like a lot of you do today with like machine learning and AI, where I think of that as just like kind of wacky and new stuff. You are swimming in it. So when you're teaching your AI courses in another 20 plus years, you'll be like, oh, I've been doing this forever, and all the but for me, but your students might think it's new. So anyway. You can use this HTML form to interact with your application. Now, there's another way to interact with your application, and that's through a command line Java program. So this is a Java program just like the ones that you've written for your projects 1, 2, and 3, but instead of interacting with files or pretty printing and things like that, what it does is it interacts with the web server. So it's also making HTTP calls off to the server. Right, and this is something that maybe people don't realize about the web, but it's key to understanding what REST is. The web, the language of the web, HTTP, the Hypertext Transport Protocol, is a protocol, and it defines sort of the format of the data being exchanged. But as far as the client's concerned, you can have all sorts of different clients, right? I mean, we think of the client as being like a web browser, but or maybe like a browser on your phone or an application on your phone that's talking with a with a web server. But it can really be anything that can speak the HTTP protocol. And so then here's a Java program that speaks that protocol. And the way you run it is it's you use your jar. So let's see, I think it's called AppointmentBookClient. Yeah, .jar. And it's a command line program, and so you didn't have enough command line arguments. And so now I am going to, you need the host, you need the port, and then I'm going to, let's see here, I am going to say Ray, a drop of the sun. So I'm going to use the command line to add a new item to the dictionary. And now when I go and look at them all, I see them both. So this is one of the things that makes this project a little different. You've got multiple pieces parts, and you've got a program that has a beginning and the ending, right? We ran the program, did its thing, and it returned. It exited. But then you've also got your Jetty server, which is running there the entire time, which is providing this persistent, or at least, persistent is probably the right word for it. Persistent storage of your dictionary. So if you're feeling a little uncomfortable because it's different, it's because it is. This is probably is dissimilar from some of the things that you've done before. So those are the pieces parts. I want to pause here for any questions about sort of the architecture and where various things are. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Now let's look at the code. So like I said, I'm going to close some of the stuff that I don't need anymore. The code is in several parts. There is code that runs on the client and code that runs on the server. And by the client, I mean the Java program that we run over here So, the Java program that says, okay, hey, what is the definition of dough? There is Java code that runs here that parses the command line, that determines what to do, and then invokes the REST API. And then there's Java code that runs over here in Jetty, which is then invoked when the HTTP request is made. Right, is the thing that responds to HTTP requests that come from the Java client, could come from the web browser, could come from any place else. A curl command, all those kinds of things. So there are a couple of new APIs that you're going to be experiencing. On the server side, there is an API called the Servlet API, and this is the thing. This provides the contract between your code in this implementation of a servlet with Jetty and all of the plumbing that it provides. So, for instance, what Jetty provides you is it runs and it listens on port 8080 for someone to make a request. That request comes in. That request comes in as HTTP. It pulls apart the protocol and eventually routes the request off to your code, depending on some configuration in the app, which you don't need to worry about, and also whether or not it's a get or a post. And then also, with the get and the post come arguments, right? So when we looked at the URL for getting a single, single definition in the dictionary, here on the URL we had information about the word that we're looking up is Ray, and there it is. So the request has information associated with it. Conceptually, what you're doing is when you do an HTTP GET, you are getting the contents of some resource. So the resource could be a file that you download, but it could also be some data that you view. In this case, it's data that you view when you ask for this URL. It says, hey, give me a description of the definition, or give me the definition of the word Ray. Similarly, when you do a post, when you do a post, this also sends data to a resource, but the resource is named appointments, and all of the data is actually part of the request that we don't see here. So when you make that request, you bundle up the information that you're sending to it. In this case, the word and its definition. You're sending that to the server. The server then can read it, and the server can read it and then do something with it. And the way that it's translated into a Java API is that the doPost method has what's called a request object and a response object. And then you can interrogate the request object to get the data that was sent to it. So that's how all of this works. Well, okay, sorry, that's on the server side. And we'll see the client side a little bit later. Let's focus on the server side for a little bit. So we looked at this code a little bit last week, and so we'll look a little bit more, but I want to get started on modifying it so that it can do stuff. Rather that it starts acting more like an appointment book application and less like a dictionary. So basically, the job of these do get and do post methods is to respond to the get or the post request and do whatever it is your application is supposed to do. So in the case of the get, it returns all of the appointments in an appointment book, unless you have those query parameters, and then you filter by it. And the post is for creating new appointments in your appointment book. So that's what ultimately we need to implement things to do. Question came in: what is the entry point on the servlet between Jetty? Is it overwritten do get, do post, do delete? That is an excellent question. So I said that Jetty is a Java program, right? It's written in Java. And for every other Java program we've ever written, there's been a main method, and that's where execution starts. But does the word main even appear in this code? It doesn't. And that's because, there is a main method that's internal to Jetty. It's Jetty's main method, and what it does is it finds your application, finds your web application, and registers and hooks everything up so that then when a request comes in, it's routed to your do get, your do post, your do delete, things like that. It's all part of the contract between Jetty and your servlet code. That's another thing that makes it a little bit different, right? So instead of starting at main, your code starts getting executed like in response to a request. It's callbacks, which when we do Android, starting next week, we'll also see how basically what you do is you sort of start up the world and then you respond to requests, as opposed to starting things, immediately getting to work and doing things, and then when you're done, you're done. It's just a different way of thinking about things. Okay. So I'm anxious. I want to get started. Okay, what I want to do is I want to modify the servlet so that it can handle, it can start handling appointments instead of these dictionaries. And I am, you know me, I'm a test-driven guy, and so then I want to write some tests. But I like having my code under test on the left and my test on the right, so I'm going to move my servlet over to the opposite group, and then over here, I'm going to open up the appointment servlet test. Oops, servlet test. Okay. So last time we also saw this AppointmentBookServlet test, and I like being able to test our code. Testing code's important; it's a required part of this class. But servlets are a little unusual in that they run inside this web container, and web containers take some time to start up, and all of that. And so what I'd really like to be able to do is test the logic of my servlet without having to start up a new Jetty every time I do that. And so then, in order to, sorry, I got distracted by an IM. So I won't be able to test my servlet code, but I don't want to run inside a container. And besides, having to write HTTP requests and everything like that. That's a lot more code. It's more challenging. We'll do that with the integration test, but I want to be able to get my logic working in unit test first, because the nice thing about unit test is that you can iterate very quickly. So I have this, I have this servlet, and when you think about it, the entry points into that servlet are like the do get method, the do post method. That's cool. So my logic resides in those methods. But how do I then test those methods? Because when I want to call do get, I send it that HTTP request and the HTTP response. Well, what I do is the following: I leverage this this framework called Mockito to make pretend implementations of HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response, and configure them in a way to do exactly what I need them to do and nothing more. And so then when I pass those to the code, to the do get method or do post method, that then they the do post method or do get method is none the wiser. All they know is they get some object that implements HTTP servlet requests and servlet response, and they can interact with it. They don't care that it's not really an object from Jetty. All they know is that with this data, when this inputs are passed in, it will perform the operations and have the appropriate outputs. So I'm going to leverage that here in my tests. And I highly recommend it. I believe it's in the dependency injection lecture is where we talk all about Mockito. Oh, sorry, and it is mock, here, let's see here. Oh yeah, there it is, Mockito. So M-O-C-K-I-T-O, Mockito. It's for mocking objects, so the whole idea, it's not like mock making fun of, it's like mock pretending. And so then the whole idea is that you get an object that looks like a regular object, and you can configure it to behave like a regular object, but you have to implement the whole thing, which is really cool.
And you said that you went over it in the dependency injection lecture?
Yep.
That's on the YouTube, right?
Yes.
Channel? Okay, I forgot. I didn't notice that was a thing, so I'll go check it out. Anyways, not now.
And and just a note to everybody: dependency injection is kind of an advanced topic, and there's a lot there, and it might be a little mind blowing. And so if you find yourself just like, I just want to get this to work, I'm just going to copy and paste the examples. If you don't need to be an expert in all of this, but you'll just learn a lot just by getting things to work. So I want, let's see here. Okay, I am going to go through and, oh, let's see here. I'm going to start modifying the servlet to support an appointment book application instead. I'm going to start with the post method, actually. So the post method, let's go back to the assignment. The post method is, it's not the post method, the post, HTTP posting to that URL. So when you post to the appointments URL, you give it the owner, description, begin and end parameters, and this is the and then that'll create a new appointment in your appointment book, and then you can go and get the appointments by using the other query. So I am going to just for tonight. I'm just going to implement owner and description. I'm not going to worry about handling times and things like that. If I can get owner and description, so basically all my appointment will hold is just an owner. If I can get that much, I'll be pretty happy with it. So that's what I will do. So I'm going to take this code and I don't know. I'm going to what am I going to do here? So I am going to say the following. So instead of add one word to dictionary, this is going to be add appointment. So what do? I get my appointment book servlet, and in the request, there will be an owner and a description. So actually, there we go. There'll be an owner description, and so I will rename this thing to be owner. Let's do that. The owner, and then this will be the description. Oops. And then, well, let's just have an owner. This is Dave, and then teach Java. So those are the values that I want to pass in. And now I need to specify the keys that get passed in. So it's owner, description, begin, and end. So the key is going to be owner, and then on the parameter, the name of the query parameter is description that gets returned description. This when is a little piece of magic that says, hey, listen, when request.get parameter is invoked with the value owner, then return the string owner, the value of this variable here. And similarly for description. So owner will be Dave, and description will be teach Java. So that is going to, and then I will, I configure the request to do that, and the request goes to the do post. And what I want to do, let's see here, does this return anything? I don't think it does. So do I care about it? I don't think I do right now. So I don't think I need, let's see here, do I need a print writer? I don't know if I need one yet. So let's not configure a print writer right now. So let's just see what happens there. I use argument captors and all sorts of stuff. That's neat. Yeah. Okay. So what the doPost method does is it reads information out of the request object and then interacts with the response object appropriately. So what I expect that it'll do is it will read the parameters from the request, and then based on that, it will create an appointment. And then it will write to the response, basically it's saying, yep, this was good, which means you return HTTP status code of 200, which is this SC OK down here. Sorry, where is it? Yep. Now, the code interacts with the response, but the test I want to validate that it actually set the response appropriately. And so I use this another piece of Mockito magic called an argument captor that basically says, hey, listen, so I call the do post, and then afterwards I say, well, I assume I want to verify though that the set status method of the response was invoked, and please take that value and put it into an argument captor. Okay. And what that does is actually writes the value in, and then you can get that value back out again by calling get value, and make sure that it equals to this. I also interesting. Okay. I also want to validate that yes, the appointment was actually created. Now I could do this by calling the get method and doing a query, but that's not going to be implemented yet. Instead, what I'll do is I'll expose something for testing. What I'll expose is the ability to get the appointment. Actually, I'm going to create a new method. So get the appointment book for the owner, and then make sure the appointment has the context that I want. So I'm going to say the following. I'm going to say appointment book, which I don't have one yet, which is fine. I'll create a new one. This is actually a good time to say that part of Project 4 is taking the appropriate code from Project 3 and copying it into the right place in Project 4. So you will be using your appointment book, your appointment class, your appointment book, your pretty printer, and you'll be using your text templater and text parser, all in Project 4. Just copy them over from the other Maven project. I don't have those, or if I do, they're not very interesting. So I'll just create a new one. I'll just create a new class. Make sure that it is in the source directory. It's in the main. There. Thank you very much. Book equals servlet.get appointment book. One day we're going to type appointment book for the given owner. And we will create that method there. Okay, create it over there. Oops. It's too small for me to see there. Yep, that's good. I'll return null for now, and that's fine. Okay. And then let's make some assertions here. So we'll assert that the book is not null value. Null value. Then we'll get the appointment. Appointment. Create the class there. And sorry, you're going to watch me create some new stuff here. And then we say book.get. I guess we don't have this extend abstract appointment book type appointment. Sweet. Let's say get appointments. This is going to be the collection, isn't it? Iterator next. Not the safest thing to do, but whatever. Actually, no, wait a second. No, I don't want to do that. I'll make some other validations first. We'll call this appointments, and then we'll assert that appointments dot size greater than 0. So it should be 1. Yeah, let's say it's 1. Appointments. Which I think there's a has size, right? Has size, yes. Has size of 1. Now I can get the 1 appointment, and then I want to assert that the appointment.get description. Oops, appointment. Implement. Sends abstract appointment. view, abstract appointment. Put in some more methods, all those guys. Okay, description equal to description. Oh, I suppose I should assert that the owner of the book. Assert that book. Get owner name equal to owner. Let me just take a step back and review what we did here. So here at the top of this test method, we set things up. This is sort of the given when then. This is the given. So given that I have an owner named Dave and a description of Teach Java, and I have mocked out my request and response to have my request send in that information about the owner and description. When I do the post, then I expect a couple things. I expect that the that the status code will have a value of 200, and that an appointment book for that owner will be created, and it has one appointment, and the description of that appointment is the description that I expect. Right? That's what that's what this scenario is testing. Where did I define? The question came in. Where did you define servlet.getAppointmentBook? I added it to the servlet itself. So this is, and actually that's a very good question. This is a method that I created to help testing, right? So this is not actually not, this doesn't need to be public. As a matter of fact, it shouldn't be public. It should be package visible. And just like that, get definition above it, which actually this can go away because I don't need the definition anymore. I'm getting rid of the definition here. That go away. Now this is saying, hey, get me the appointment book for that owner. And so this is a method. This is a what's the right word for that? A test access. It's a method that I've added for the benefit of testing. It's not something that anybody else would do.
And this function is automatically private.
When it created it, IntelliJ made it public for some reason, which it didn't need to.
But what I mean is, you took away public. It doesn't have public, private, or protected. But without them, it's private, right?
No. Default scope is package visible. So it's visible to other code in the package, and this is good for me because the test and the code under test are in the same package. So this is how you make things available to tests. Tests are in your same package. They can see the package level.
And the package is like the basically the source folder.
It corresponds to the folder. It's the namespace for the class. Yep.
Yeah, and the @visible for testing thing is more like a little bit more like a macro, though, right? It's not actually.
It's not even a macro. It's more like a tag. It doesn't change the functionality. It's a note to the reader that says, "Oh yeah, the reason this thing is package protected is so that the test can access it." It's a nice little thing. Actually, and this is not a standard Java thing. It's part of a library called Guava, which Google put out.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it seems like a macro or something. And also, is package protected? Is that the same thing as protected, or is it written out a different way?
No, protected is allowed. Any subclass, no matter what package it is in, can access a protected member.
Okay. Is there a way to write package protected explicitly? Or?
I think you said default. I think they added what is it, default? Nope. No, it's not default. What is it? Is it? Oh, maybe it's just package. They added that at some point.
Okay.
Nope.
So
I thought there was a way. Can't remember now. Let me look.
Because I've never seen a method not have anything there. So I wanted to be sure I understood that wasn't some kind of strange new thing. Package dash private, looks like.
That's not a keyword though. Default.
I mean, it was right up there. It looked like it said package dot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could try
private.
it. Package. What is it?
Although it doesn't have it there.
Okay, well, gee, I thought for sure somewhere along at some point they added some keyword allowed there. So maybe I'm just not using a new enough version of the.
Now I'm curious how the version that you're using differs then, but and in any case, it's
I could
getting a
also
little
be
beside the point,
remembering it wrong.
maybe.
How about this one? Maybe that was just something that people thought about doing and never actually did. Huh. Okay. Yeah, or yeah, don't know. Oops.
Someone in chat said maybe no modifier.
Which definitely works. I know that works. That's worked since the beginning, but I thought there was a way to call it explicitly. But maybe anyway, little detour there. But yes, basically what we're doing here with this Get Appointment Book is exposing some behavior on the servlet so we can test it more easily.
Okay, thanks.
So to review, we are testing our doPost method, and we're saying, hey, when you send in an owner of that value and a description of that value, I expect that it's successful, and that then when I go and interrogate the servlet and ask for that appointment book, I get the I get the stuff that we expect. So let's run it and see the damages. So it's running it, and it runs it just like a unit test. Not surprisingly, it's saying, okay, that set status was never invoked on this. Okay, well, that's interesting. So let's go figure it out by looking at doPost. Now, here's doPost, and there is, boy, there's a lot of stuff here from the dictionary, but that's not such a big deal. So let's see here. We want to have, we're going to change word to owner. And this is not word parameter anymore. This is, we'll call that owner parameter. Okay, so let's talk about the parameters. So, the parameters are those key value pairs that are passed in. And what we do is I have a helper method here called getParameter that takes in the name of a parameter. So that's that key part of the key value. And then the request and does the following. It says, hey, it calls getParameter on the request. It says if either the value is null or it's empty string, then return null, otherwise return the value. And in this case, our mock object says, hey, when getParameter is called with the value owner, then return owner. Oops, on that. It's the same getParameter method here. And this is sort of the magic of Mockito. You basically say, oh yeah, right, here's an object that behaves like this. When getParameter with owner is called, return the value Dave. So then back here, sorry, where's the doPost? We're going to have that be owner. And so now we want this to be owner. While I'm here, I'll change this to be a description parameter. And then this will be description. Go back to doPost. Okay, so what is this doing? We are, we are getting the parameters, et cetera, et cetera. So we're getting owner, we're getting description. We'll change this to description. Okay. Okay, well now the logic here isn't what we want at all. This is the whole dictionary logic. So I'm just going to blow this all away and start over again. And now this is just plain old Java code. This is like what you would have done in project 1, 2, and 3 when you're creating a new appointment and adding to an appointment book. So let's see here. The first thing you need to do is, well, create an appointment book, or if there's already one existing, then I need to use the existing one. And so then that reminds me, what we have up here is a dictionary of strings to strings. Now I want a whole bunch of appointment books. And so now I'm going to, let's see here, I'm going to change this to be, this is called books. And instead of it being a map of string to strings, how about we just have it be a string to an appointment book, and then we can key it off the name of the owner. So here we're going to say the following. We're going to say get our appointment book, which is this.books.get owner name if book equals null. Then book equals new appointment book. And we're going to pass in the owner there, and we'll add this owner over there. And then that's our new book. And then regardless, now we're going to create a new appointment. Appointment equals new appointment, and it will take the description. We'll add the constructor over there. All good. Then we will add the appointment to the appointment book. And that's good. And that's what we've got. So now this is the kind of logic that you would have had in like your main method or someplace else, but now it's here in the do post. We go and we get the appointment book if it already exists. And if it doesn't, we create a new one. Oh, and we got to put it in the appointment books. Although if I'm being test driven, no, actually we'll need that because then we'll go get it later. Yeah, we'll put it in our map. And by the way, our map is how we store the appointment books. So you're not using your text dumper in this project to write to files. Actually, what you're using text dumper for is to write from the server to the client. But instead, we store the appointment books in memory in the Jetty server, which means that when you shut down your Jetty server, all your appointment books go away, and that's fine for this assignment. Of course, in the real world, you will persist it off to some storage, whether it's files or whether it's database or the cloud, whatever. But just for this assignment, just keep it all in memory. My gift to you. Anyway, okay, cool. We've implemented stuff in do post. I think it's good to go now. But of course, I want to test it out. And while I'm running the test, Andrew, you've got a question.
Yeah, you said, I want to write down exactly what you said. You said text dumper doesn't write to files, we're writing to the server?
Yes, right, because, yeah, and actually, thank you for, maybe I was a little subtle there. When you do a get, it returns all of the appointments in the appointment book format using the text dumper.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if for project 4, you're going to teach your text dumper how to write to something other than a file. So I'm guessing that for number review in project 2, it only writes to a file. Remember your pretty printer, how your pretty printer had to write to either a file or standard out? Well, now you've got a text dumper that you're going to teach your text dumper how to write to something else. And if we have time, we'll take a look at that, how to do that.
Maybe, yeah, I get it.
Okay. Yeah, paying so much for this education that you're getting. Okay, I tried to run the test and things aren't working, and it's because this right definition. This is kind of interesting. Let's see here. You know what? I am eventually going to turn this method into something else. Eventually, I'm going to, let's see here. Let's get rid of these things. Eventually, this is going to be, I think this is going to be write appointment book. And word is going to be owner. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but the code doesn't compile. So, but the code doesn't compile, so I should do the minimal amount of effort. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Wow, even knew that was the, okay, and then so just change that to an appointment book. And then here, I am going to just comment this code out for the time being and fix it later. Okay, what else doesn't compile? Write all dictionary entries. I don't think I need that anymore. How's that different from write appointment? I'll fix that stuff later. Let's see. I was coming out this good. Maybe I'll leave it. And then otherwise, it is happy. Okay. Let's try to run the tests again. See what it does. Okay. It's saying wanted but not invoked. Printed up print line dictionary on server contains 0 words. What does it sound right? What do I still have there? Oh, I ran the wrong test. That would explain it. This method is not implemented yet. Oh yes, okay. Sorry, bear with me while I provide some implementation here of the appointment in appointment book classes. You would, of course, when you do this, you can just copy in your existing implementation. It should, well, hopefully everything all still works. You might need to make some changes and stuff depending on how you implemented things. How tightly coupled your code is, don't know. So let's see here. So this is an appointment book. Oops, first in the right place. There we go. So we'll say this dot appointments dot add appointment, and then I will create this thing, and this will just be my this would be a list of appointments. Appointment, yes, that's just great. There's the array list. Should be sufficient. You all might be using something else. Andrew, is your hand still up, or you just leave it up?
Oh, yeah, I think I forgot to just lower it, but I actually do have a question right now, which is, I noticed that you define that field as a list of appointment type and then made it go to new array list. Is there really an advantage to doing that? Because my first instinct would just be to be like, it's an array list from the beginning.
Oh, okay. Right. Why do I have list here instead of array list? Very good question. Actually, what this should be, I should probably just have it be a collection, because what's returned down here is a collection, and I like to keep things as high level as possible, as general as possible, because some of you might have noticed that for your project 3, well, in project 1 and 2, you probably used an array list to store your appointments, and that was fine, right? It can be any collection. In project 3, some of you might have started using a sorted set like tree set to store your appointments because they get automatically sorted for you. Both array list and sorted set are collections, and so if I just sort of say, hey, everything here is a collection, I can make a change like that. I can use a different implementation of collection. I can go from array list to tree set, array list to tree set, and none of the other code has to change. So that's why I like programming to the interface.
So by making appointments a reference to a collection type, it makes converting between array list and tree set and things like that easier.
Yeah, so I can just change this to be a tree set.
Okay.
And
Definitely
that's the one line I need to change, and all of a sudden everything is sorted.
Okay. I was wondering, does it also make like converting when it's already been instantiated easier, or no?
Yeah, you have to change the code either way.
Yeah, okay. I just thought I'd check,
But
since basically I use an array list, and I noticed that get appointments in the abstract appointment book returns a collection. I implemented that, but I don't use it basically because I wasn't sure what to deal with that, and at that time I didn't know collection was actually like the parent of all the different sets and stuff. So yeah, I'll look into that, I guess. But right now I'm still doing array list.
Nice, good learning right there. Let's hear a question.
I don't know if that question is aimed at me.
No, sorry. What did I change in get definition?
Yeah.
What did I? I'll come back to that in a little bit. What did I call it? I called it. Oops. That I wanted this. I wanted. What was it? Get. I think I changed it to get appointment book. Nope. I changed it. What was it? The right appointment book maybe. No. I think I changed get definition to get appointment book. Right? Yeah. I haven't gotten there yet. Although since I'm looking at it, let's figure out how to implement it. This is going to be return this dot appointments. No, this dot books dot get of the other. So basically, what I'm doing is instead of the dictionary, which stored, word pairs, now I'm storing. Now I'm mapping the name of an owner to its appointment book, so that's easy to look up. Okay, let's see how I'm doing on my test. I implemented a bunch of stuff. I probably have more to implement, but see, I'll have my test tell me this. This is why I like test-driven development, right? I've come to the conclusion that I am old and lazy, and that means test-driven development is great because it's like old. I don't remember things for very long anymore, and I'm lazy. I want something to tell me, right? I want the robots to do the work for me. The robot is telling me, hey, listen, it doesn't really speak like that. That's probably like a stereotype or something. The robots are telling me, they're giving me feedback on what doesn't work, and I like that. Yes, another method that isn't supported. No problem here. Let me I'll just say return.
I wanted to just note that I respect that you called yourself out for racially profiling robots. That is something else.
Well, just because it's robots, I don't want to normalize making fun of the way people talk, right? Even if it's not people. So yeah. Because I tell my kids in the future there's going to be two kinds of jobs. Either a job where a robot tells you what to do, or you tell the robots what to do. Which one do you want, right? So I want the robots to be our friends, and to to get along well with them. But again, all you kids today learning about your artificial intelligence, it's gonna be great. I've seen too many Terminator movies though, so I'm a little.
Right.
Oops. Okay, and then this dot description equals description. And I'll make this fun. Skynet seems like a good job opportunity if you want to be food for the robots. That was the Matrix. Never mind. Okay. Okay. Okay, I changed this now, and let's see how it's going. Yay, good. Okay. So awesome. Look what I've just, okay, so I'm a little surprised. Okay, good. So now what we're able to do is demonstrate that when we call do post with a request that has owner and description in it, it's going to create a new appointment, and it does that. I'm trying to think where I want to go next with this. Do I want to write more on my servlet? Yeah, I think I do. Okay, so this is creating an appointment, and I'll leave it as an exercise to you all to figure out, okay, how do I add the dates and do all the validation and all that kind of stuff. Now I want to implement the get, and let's go back to what get is. I want to have it return all the appointments in the appointment book. I'm not going to do the querying stuff. I'll let that be up to you, but I'll show how we can then return all the appointments in an appointment book using the text number format. And I will, I guess I don't really have, let's see here. I think I'll, yeah, I'll leverage this one and change it a little bit. So instead of initially servlet contains this, it will be, let's see here, getting appointment book returns text format. And let's see here. Do I want to go through the bother to? Oh, actually, you know what I want? Well, do I want to commit this code yet? Yeah. I'm wondering how I want to create the appointment, because I need to create the appointment book, and I'm going to then I'm going to format it using the text dumper. Okay, I'm going to add another test method, which will let me. Oh yeah, wait, I can see here. I will add a test method that lets me create an appointment book, so I don't need to go through the whole servlet API, right? I can just say servlet dot create, yeah, create appointment book for the owner. Oops. So let's see here. I want an owner description again, but what I'll do is I'm not going to bother to try to use the do post method to create this. I'm just going to have test methods for this. So create appointment book for the owner, and I will do that over here. I want appointment book. Yep, and fix that later. And I want this to be an appointment book. And then I want to add an appointment, new appointment, with that description. Nice. Okay. So I've set that up. And now what I want to do is I want to say when request dot get parameter of owner, then return the owner variable, then return Dave. And so here's what the doGet method is going to do. It's going to say, when the owner parameter is passed, go look up the appointment book. It's going to format it to using the text dumper, and then it is going to invoke the text dumper in a way such that the text version of the appointment book is written to not a file, not to standard out, but to the responses print writer. So, right, in HTTP, you send in some information from the request, and then a payload, a content, is sent back to the requester. And the way you send text back is you ask the response, hey, can I have your print writer? Now, you've probably used print writer before. It's a standard Java I/O object. It lets you do print line. It's really nice. Why not reuse that in the servlet API? Great idea. So you can get the print writer that then you write to it, and that's what is sent by Jetty back to the client. And that's what we're going to do here. In the test, however, we need to, what we're going to do, we're going to mock out the print writer. Right. And we are, what we're going to do, though, actually, we're going to mock it out. No, we're not going to mock it out. We're going to send it a real print writer that then writes to what's called a string writer, which allows you to get a buffer of text. And I think you've seen me do this before. So here, we're not going to send, yeah. So then new print writer wrapped around a string writer. Actually, we don't need that variable anymore. We can just inline it. Nope, we can just hit the right key combination to inline it. Cool. And so what this will do is when the mock object is invoked, say, hey, give me a writer. What it gives you is print writer that really writes to a string. The doGet method isn't going to care that it writes to a string. All it knows is it gets a print writer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say the following. First of all, we're going to say the response was okay. And then we are going to get the text that was written, and that will be the contents of that string writer. And then we're going to assert that that text contains string both the owner and that it contains the description of the appointment. And that's going to be my test for whether or not the appointment was printed to that. Probably what you want to do is then hook up to your text parser and actually parse the appointment back and make sure it's in the right format and everything. I'm not going to do that here, but that's probably a better way to do it. Although we're going to need that. We're going to need that eventually, but not right now. I don't know how much I'm going to get to tonight. So, okay. Let's get to this. And so let's see here. Run this, and it's probably going to blow up somewhere along the way. Okay, yeah, null pointer exception. Probably because I didn't implement. Yeah, I didn't implement create. I can't find my null. Oh, that's neat. Oh yeah, because I didn't implement create appointment. Create appointment book. So I'm going to say what? I'm going to say this appointment appointment book equals new appointment book for the owner. This dot books dot put owner book. Oops. Nope. Owner book. Return yes, return book. I am then going to, I had that exact same code up here. I'm going to replace this with create appointment book owner. Go back down there. Yep, that's the same code. We're going to run our test again. Oops. We're going to run our test again and see how it goes this time. This is a little bit farther, I bet. Okay, expected a string Dave. Well, it got pretty far down the test. Let's see here. Where did it get? Okay, there actually wasn't any text written to the print writer, so let's go fix that then. So let's go over to the doGet method. Take a look at what we got. Parameter. Okay, so this is going to be owner now, and actually let's see. Can I switch this? There you go. If it's null, then I want to say missing required parameter. Response owner parameter. Otherwise, write appointment book for the owner to the response. Oh yeah, here is this code that I got before. And now, oh, okay, cool. This is what I want. So now this is where I want to write the appointment book out. Here's what I'm going to do. So the print writer is this comes from the response. This is the thing we mocked out with that print writer reference string writer before. But this code doesn't know that. It just knows it gets a print writer. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my text dumper. Not that text dumper, thank you. I'm going to create that class in my main. And this will implement appointment book dumper of appointment book. Got a dump method. Nice. Equals new text dumper. And I will pass my print writer to that. I will create that constructor. I'll have it be something nice and abstract, like a. Actually, no, I didn't want that. I wanted it to be a print writer, and we'll call it PW. We'll call it writer. There we go. And then I will dump the book to that. I will flush that, and I'll say everything's okay. Now I'll run it again. I don't expect it to pass quite yet because I didn't implement my text dumper, but this method isn't implemented yet. Well, that is true. Okay, good. Okay, and so then I'm going to choose a very simple file format. I'm just going to say writer. Oops, oh, I need to put it there. This dot writer equals writer. And so basically all I'm going to dump out is the owner, and then for appointments in book.getAppointments, I'm going to iterate over each one of those, and then I'm going to say writer.println appointment. Again, you've already written this, and so hopefully you just copy over your text dumper. Maybe got change it a little bit so that I can work with any print writer into this file. But oops, appointment dot description. That's all it's got. Let's do that. It passed. Okay, why did it pass? Well, because hey, don't be too impressed. Remember, I've been doing this for more than 20 years. I've written this code before. You can watch on YouTube. So, but yeah, but I will say though, the reason like I can go so fast is I've got that test over on the right, and I'm confident like all I need to do is make the test pass, and when the test passes, I'm done. I can move on to whatever next. So let's review one more time what we did. Ultimately, what we're doing is we're calling our doGet method, and we are sending in a request and response. The request has been, well, first of all, like the given part, given that I've got an appointment book servlet with that appointment in it, so I created the book and I created the appointment in it. When I invoke doGet with a request that is configured to have an owner parameter with that value, and a response with this magical print writer that captures things to a string writer, when I invoke doGet, I want to first of all verify that the status code was 200, and then I want to get the contents of what was ever written to that print writer from this string writer, and make sure that it includes the owner string and the description string. And the way I did all that, where's the doGet? So okay, let's go take a look at that over here. What doGet does is it simply says, hey, what's the owner? And if the owner is present, then it calls this write appointment book. What does this do? It goes look at the appointment book, make sure that it's there, and if it is, then we simply create our text dumper for, around the print writer that comes from the HTTP servlet response, dump out the book, and say everything's okay. The logic is comparatively straightforward. It's just the mechanics of all of this. So anyway, so that's that. We're at a good pausing point. So, but I want to, before we take a break, are there any questions about what you've just seen? Either in terms of like, what's this mock stuff all about? Or like, okay, we've done all this stuff on the servlet. Does it make sense? A wanted but not invoked error. Oh, interesting. Okay, good. Simple questions. Can you do a quick recap of the when method? Yes. This is a important thing. This is a little bit of magic that basically says, here I have an object here called request. And when, it's a mock object. I'm configuring that mock object to behave in a certain way. I'm configuring it to behave such that when the get parameter method is called with the value of owner, then I return, well, Dave in this case. That's this owner variable right here. So I return Dave. And so then, in the doGet method over here, okay, sorry, and then I take this request object and I send it to my doGet. So here in doGet, when the test is run, the value that's passed in here as the request parameter is actually this mock object. And this mock object, this mock request, is passed to this get parameter method here. And here is when request.getParameter is actually called. Now this code, it doesn't care whether or not it's a mock object, whether it's an object provided by Jetty, whatever. All it knows is that it's got an object that is of type HTTP servlet request. And when you call getParameter, what does it do? It returns Dave. Okay, right? And so what this allows me to do is allows me to interact with my servlet code even though I'm not running in a servlet container. And that's why I can have unit tests that run so quickly. After the break, we'll look at integration tests and how to do this stuff from the client side, and we'll see that it's much slower to get everything going. And let's see here from another statement. I'm trying to follow along. I'm getting a wanted but not invoked error. That's probably something from the verify method. And it's possible then that there's some part of the servlet that isn't quite implemented yet. That's why you're seeing that. But wanted but not invoked says, hey, listen, I wanted to verify that set status was called my response object. Oh, wait, and it wasn't called? Huh, interesting. It's super cool that Mockito tells you this, but then you got to figure out why. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit my code up to the repository. I'll just put up a link to it. I'll post the link in the chat here so that you can look at it better. You can look at it later. But now it's time for a break. So let's take a break until let's take I don't know, a little more than 10 minutes. So like maybe 12, 13 minutes. We'll come back. No, let's take 14. We'll start at 7:05. Everybody get a break. Clear your head. We'll do this for a little while longer, but I do want to get to the mob programming tonight.
Will you open up the survey?
And I will open up the survey. Thank you.
Thanks.
I will pause the recording. Good. Okay, so yeah, you had asked like, how can we pass in like the do-get method to call? So we'll say oops, we will call this invoke servlet method, and we don't want owner here. We're going to change this instead to be a map. So we're going to have, I'm just kind of making this up here. So map, like string to string, which will be the query parameters, or the, this is query parameters. So class map, query params, and this is going to be a map of, the key is going to be owner. What is all that text? And then the value is going to be owner. Okay. Yeah. Stop that. Gosh. Okay. And then, so instead of passing this, we're going to pass in query params. We're going to change the query parameter to this. And this is going to be params. Params. And then here, we're going to create the mock, and then we're going to iterate over the query params. So we're going to say params dot for each, and then this is going to be a new by consumer, whatever the hell that is. But this is, oops, oh, come on, sorry, wrong keyboard. Lost myself here. Where is my test? There it is. So for this thing, this is going to be the key. This is going to be the value, and here we're just going to say when the key, then return the value. Then we're going to let IntelliJ do all the heavy lifting. So replace with lambda. That's neat. Okay. Now we've abstracted out that. Now we also want to abstract out this call to do get. So here, what we want is, so for me, I'm much more, I'm old school. Inner class makes more sense to me, and then we'll fix something. We basically have some method here that takes in a request and response. So we're going to have, what we want is to have, let's say, let's call it servlet method invoker. Servlet method invoker. Invoker equals new. This will be an inner class. And so I want to create interface. And I want to be interface. Oops. Interface. So like that. Oh, oops. Interface. There we go. And yeah, new servlet invoker. Don't overwrite anything there, and then I'm going to have invoker.invoke with the request and response. And then I'm going to create the method there. Yep. And now I'm going to implement the method. And it is going to do this. And it's now going to throw some methods. I want to session functions. It's going to do this. And now, okay, what have I got here? Replace with lambda. Well, no, I want to then turn this into a parameter. And yes. And now I've got that. And let's see here. Now can I turn this into a method reference? There!
Yeah.
You're sorry you're asked. Well, this would do it. Right, and now I can, let's see here, I can do the same thing
Oh,
down
just
here.
back up. I want to see a little bit what it just did with this thing. So it's doing
Yeah.
servlet : do get.
Yes,
So that, what exactly does that?
that's a method reference. That's a function pointer. That's a
servlet method, and you're passing in the method reference, and so you can servlet.
yeah, and it is basically saying this is syntax that says the do get instance method on the servlet object.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that would be how you do it. Okay, cool. I can do that. Thanks.
Okay, right. Well, that was neat and a little bit scary. I like it. That does it still work?
Check that one.
Right? Yeah, right. Let's see what kind of mess we can get ourselves into this time. Ooh, okay, now I want to try it. Oh, this is kind of fun. Okay. Now let's see here. Let's invoke servlet method and map of, I want to have, oops, I want to say owner. I want to say description. And then what was the other thing is the method invoker. So I'll have servlet do post. Oops, colon, do post. And then this returns. So I don't do anything with the print writer. So now I think I can delete all this code because it does all that. Oh, the things that we can do with code. So yeah, I don't know if that's, I don't think it's necessarily easier to read, but it does duplicate some it does eliminate some duplicate code. Wow. Okay.
And it's good for future reference because
yeah,
now from programming Java, I can do it if I need to.
Yeah. I will, wow. Okay. Use some wacky functional programming to eliminate some duplicate code. That was fun. But you see how helpful IntelliJ was? I mean, this is when it's like, let the tools do the heavy work, right? I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's basically all the stuff that I need from the servlet. So let's just refresh what we did before break. We were, tonight at the beginning of class, we are augmenting. We are evolving the out-of-the-box dictionary application, and I have restarted it. Right? Yeah. Out of the box, we're modifying the out-of-the-box dictionary application to handle appointment book, handle appointments and appointment books. Okay. The first thing we did was we attacked the servlet as through unit testing. And now we have unit tests that demonstrate two things. One, the first one demonstrates that we can use the do post method to create a new appointment in an appointment book. And we demonstrated that we can use the do get method to return a text representation of all of the appointments in an appointment book. Pretty neat. We've been doing this all, though, like in plain old Java code, we didn't even run our web application in like an hour and a half. Nothing wrong with that, but it's a little unusual. Now, in the second part of the discussion, what I want to do is I want to start looking at the clients and how the clients need to evolve to do stuff with the appointment book. So I'm going to run. Actually, I don't even know if I can run Jetty. Stop it there. I need to restart it. By the way, whenever you make a change to your server-side Java code, like your servlet or anything that the servlet uses, you need to stop your Jetty server and restart it in order to get everything to recompile, to get your web application to redeploy. I know that over the years I've seen like really weird errors, like, well, I just fixed that. Why is it still broken? Oh, right, it's because I haven't restarted Jetty. So just when you have a long-running program, that's what you need to do when you change the code. Okay, well, so now I've restarted it. Now I want to interact with it, and so here's what I'm going to do. I am going to go back here, and I'm just going to hit this URL to see what happens. Oh, you get a 412. The required parameter owner is missing. Okay, and so now I want to say owner equals Dave. Oh, it gets a 404 because it was not. That is true. It gets a 404. Okay, so now I need to do something with it. For me, the easiest place to start is with that is with the HTML form. So let's just go back to that. Again, this is for demonstration purposes only. Here's what I'm going to do, though. I think it'll be sort of easiest for me to show you how to change the form first, and then we'll get to the Java code later. So I mean, this is here to sort of help get things started, and I find it's a pretty easy thing to go and fix. So I'm going to go find my index.html. Oops, no, that is not a file I care about. Index.html. And it has an HTML form and all of its 1996 glory. And now, okay, that will get all of them, which I don't think is a thing. Here's an appointment book. So actually, I'm going to delete this because that endpoint isn't supported. Oh, let's see. There's some text going by. A couple questions about mob programming. Yes, you use the same repos. You don't need to create. As long as you find someone in the group has a public repo, you can use it. And yeah, this is going to be a fun recording. Yeah, Lee, I'm not sure what that problem is exactly. I wonder. Check the prom.xml to see if it's been modified. That might be because it's looking for appointment book jar, which I don't even know what that is. Sorry. Okay. I'm not going to go through the nuances of HTML forms. If you know what you're looking at, that's great. Otherwise, we'll sort of do what we did before, is change this to be owner. And actually, we'll just change some of this text. So this will be text for appointment book owned by whatever. Actually, we'll probably say fetch text. And then create a new appointment for owner owner we'll say with description. It's a little wider. I'm going to 100 wide. I'll call it description. So basically what an HTML form does is it you say whether or not you want to perform a get or a post request of a particular URL, in this case appointments, and each time you use the input item here, the input tag, to specify the parameter to the data that's sent to the URL. In this case, it'll be a query parameter of owner, and the value there will be in this text input. And then title is owner, and the title is owner, and the title is, and then similarly down here, we say create a new appointment for owner this, and then we have the name here, and this is what will be put in the HTTP post as the key, and then the value will be whatever you put into that input box, similar to the description. Just let me go back here. Now, if I reload this, does it change? Ooh, it changed. That's nice. So the index, I'm running Jetty in such a way, because I'm using Jetty run, that if I change the index.html, I can just reload the page, and it sees the change. That's really nice. Doesn't work for the Java code, though. Okay, so now if we fetch appointment book owned by Dave, we see that we get to 404, but then if we go and change Dave to teach Java, we submit. Okay, it doesn't return anything. That's not super exciting. Maybe we could change that. And now when we run the query for owner equals Dave, now we see the output of the appointments. Okay, so what this just demonstrated to me is that our servlet, when it's running in Jetty, behaves as we expect. I'm not surprised by this because I wrote unit tests that verified all of this. And this is why I like to start with the unit tests, right? Unit tests provide sort of the foundational verification that yes, your code works as expected. And and because I did in unit tests, I could iterate very quickly when things change. I didn't need to stop Jetty and start it up again every time I made a change to my servlet. You can do it that way. It's going to take you a long time, though. So, here again, do what you need to do how you're comfortable. I recommend that you invest a little bit of time in figuring out all this Mockito stuff so that you can very easily interact with your servlet. Cool. So we just modified one client to work with the Jetty. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the chat. Lee, so undo those changes to your pom.xml and instead copy in your appointment book classes. I think what happened is that you went to type appointment and then you imported it from the other project, and the Maven isn't set up for those dependencies. So we modified the index.html, which is one client, to our servlet, to our web application. Now let's go look at the Java code that is a client to our web application. Actually, let me just check this real quick. Modified the index.html to work with the appointment book servlet. Push that up. Okay, so we have a class called AppointmentBookRestClient. AppointmentBookRestClient is Java code that makes the HTTP post, makes HTTP GET requests of the servlet. So this is a Java API for interacting with the servlet. Just like when we saw with that index.html, we saw that there was an HTML page that interacts with the API. It's Java code. It's a little bit more complex. It heavily leverages this class that I wrote, which is often in one of my, it's often the examples project artifact that that takes care of all of the HTTP crafting the URL and making the requests and everything like that. That's neat code. That's like Java core API code. But I don't want you to focus on that. Instead, I wrote this helper, which I hope is helpful, that does all that stuff for you. And we'll see how that's used shortly. But because I'm a test-driven kind of person, I am going to I am going to write an integration test for this. So because this code makes HTTP requests, it relies on the servlet running. And so then I have my Jetty running there. Yeah, I have my Jetty running. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to write an integration test that uses my REST client to then make calls to the Jetty. And as well, we'll see if Jetty isn't running, then the test will fail because it can't connect. It can't find the it can't connect to the server. So sorry, that is the wrong test. That's a servlet test. I want client IT. There we go. Okay, this is a different kind of integration test. Now, we saw integration tests in projects 1, 2, and 3 that dealt with the command line. And as you'll recall, what the integration test gave us, they extended a class called invoke_main test cases. And they gave you this magical method called invoke_main that let you do things like call your main method that interacts with system.out and system.error, as well as calling system.exit. And you could do all of that without like your JVM blowing up, and you could get what was written to standard error. So it provided some magical framework for you. And the reason it was called an integration test is because it was, it dealt with those integration points like calling system.exit or calling system.error. The integration test for the REST client here doesn't have anything special in terms of inheriting, but it's an integration test because it requires that the Jetty be run. And so you have to have Jetty running when you run these. As we'll see when you do a clean verify from Maven, the project is configured to run Jetty for you, so it'll start up Jetty for you. But since I've got Jetty running, I'm able to run it in IntelliJ. So I have got, interesting. I need to do a little bit of surgery here before it's sort of ready to do its thing. So I've got, okay, sorry, one other thing. This test, so normally what you want is each test should be idempotent, should be independent. So you should be able to run the test and have it not depend on anything. However, in this case, you've got the server running, and so then you can perform a sequence of events with the server, and there are going to be side effects, right? I add an appointment in one test, well, that appointment's still going to be there when the next test runs, which may be what you want. Maybe you want to go back and reference it later. And so then I have this test annotated with test method order method name, which means that it's going to run in lexicographical alphabetical order based on the name of the test. That's why you have like test 0, test 1, things like that. So the first thing that this test does is it actually clears out any data that might be in the server, which is a good thing for it to do. So I am going to rename this to be test 0. Remove all appointment books. So the first thing it does is it gets an instance of the REST client, and the REST client, is created here in this new appointment book REST client. And basically, an appointment REST client communicates on a host and a port. Right? This is a Java code that runs in a separate process from Jetty, so it needs to know how to connect. And it connects over a host and a port. That's configured using this stuff up here. Oops, my chat went away. So you get your appointment client, and then you're going to call this method called remove all dictionary entries. I'm going to rename this to be remove all appointment books. Oops. Insert. What did I? Oh, I know what I did. Remove all appointment. Okay, what does, okay, well, so now I'm going to see what happens when I run this. I'm going to run it, and, oh, that worked. I am surprised, but let's see what that did. So remove all appointments. I'm over here in my REST client. It uses these methods that are inherited from HTTP request helper. So I'm going to call a delete. I'm going to make an HTTP delete call for the URL associated with this client, and the URL is put together in the constructor. It basically formats the URL from the host and the port, and then the web app, which is appointment book, and the servlet, which is appointments, to create a URL that looks like this, right? AppointmentBookServlet localhost 8080. So it puts together the URL, and then in the then it does HTTP delete of that, and there are no parameters. So the way this works is that you give it a URL, and then you give it a map of key values of parameters. Calling methods like delete return an object called response, and what a response gives you is let's look at it here. Response has methods like you can get the status code, you can get the content, and you can get the number of lines of content, which might be things that you want to validate. And the content is what's ever returned from the HTTP request. HTTP response, has the body, like when we write the body of the when we write the text dump output of the appointments. Okay, well that just called delete. I'm not sure if it did what we wanted to, but that's okay. Oh, I also have this helper method, which is throw exception if not okay HTTP status. Just like some of you encountered this, with your price 1, 2, and 3. When something goes wrong, how do you want to handle it? And there are a couple of students I interacted with whose unit tests were failing because it was calling system.exit when you couldn't parse a file, or when you couldn't parse a date or something like that. And I said, well, really, what you want to do is instead of calling system.exit, you should instead convey that something went wrong via an exception. And that way, you leave it to something like your main method to decide what to do with it, right? Because if your servlet calls system.exit, that crashes your Jetty, and all of a sudden your servlet's gone. That's not what you want. If the user gives you bad input, you don't want your server to crash. Nope, instead you want to tell them something. And so then, if in the internals of your code, you get an error, you should propagate back an exception that can be caught and handled appropriately. Anyway, so similarly, because this is a Java code, even though we got an HTTP response, let's say a 404, we don't want to return an int, because we don't want the fact that you're making an HTTP call to really leak outside of this nice REST client. We instead want to communicate that with a REST exception. And so that's what this method does right here. So you send in a response, and if the status code from the response is anything but an HTTP OK, you create a REST exception. This is an exception that comes with the HTTP request helper, with the code and whatever message was returned, and then you throw that exception. And then whatever code calls your REST client, which will be your command line application, can handle that exception accordingly. Like print out an error message, a standard error, and exit the VM, because that's off in the command line logic. Right? It works in the world of command line. This works in the world of Java. Okay. Okay. Well, we were able to delete stuff, which is surprising and interesting. So let's see here. That test, I don't know if that's too interesting. Define one word. Okay, this is good. Let's change this to create appointment book with one appointment. So this will be the equivalent to this add appointment. Right, it's going to do the same thing. It is going to create a new appointment new appointment book with one appointment, but it's going to do it via a call via an HTTP call, where this just used unit tests. Right, this used Mockito to do it. Now we're actually going to make a call for real because we're in an integration test. So then, let's massage some of this code. This will not be test word. This will now be owner. And we'll just use this, and then instead of test definition, this will be description, and then we'll call it teach more Java. Instead of add dictionary, we are going to have it called create appointment, and then okay, well we have to do. I guess this is the only way to do it. We create the appointment, and then let's see, just return anything? Nope, it doesn't return anything, which is fine. If something goes wrong, it throws an exception. And then instead of get definition, we're going to call it get appointments for the owner, and this is going to return the text. So appointment book text, appointment book text, and we're going to assert that it contains the owner and the description. Okay, so let's run this and see what happens. Aha, it failed. So it got HTTP status code of, of 412 precondition failed. Well, we'll figure that out. But Andrew, you have a question?
Yeah. I have a question about what's your opinion on core matchers all of? Because I found out about that, and that's a way to have one assert check multiple things at the same time. And I noticed you didn't do it that time, so I thought I would ask.
It's balance. You know, the thing, I find this a little bit easier to read when you use the all of. It's just like a lot of text, and your code ends up looking like Lisp, lots of parentheses. Some people like that. Also,
The way I do it is I have like one entry on each line.
okay. Yeah.
Also,
so
perhaps this failed because it has equal to instead of contains.
Oh, that is true. I don't think it got that far actually, but you are correct. It should be contains. Yes.
Okay.
Oops. Yeah, it blew up on create appointment, but that is true. That should be contains string. Good call. You're just warming up for your mob programmer, aren't you? Let's see. Cool. Okay, so create appointment failed because it got an HTTP status code of 412. I think I know why. But let's see what create appointment is doing. Create appointment says, post to my URL, which is, okay, it says, calls the post method inherited from HTTP request helper with my URL, and then dictionary entries. Well, this is really appointment info now. But what it's posting is, oh yeah, the word and the definition stuff. Well, let's rename all of this. So, yes, owner. Actually, I can. And now let's rename all occurrences, not just the code ones, and this will be description. So what was happening is I wasn't passing in the owner. As a matter of fact, let's see here, precondition failed. Oh, it didn't tell me that it was the owner that was missing. Okay. I'm surprised, but all right. Okay, so now I changed the client to pass in the right thing to the servlet. And let's see here. Now I'll run it again. Oops. Now what did I got? Another precondition failed, but now, it was when I called get appointments that it failed. And actually, so now I'm going to show you something. Now, if I go and I look at my appointments again on my server, oh look, it's got a new one. But I didn't have the old one. I must have restarted. Oh, I called delete, and I wonder if that cleared out everything. I didn't realize that it would, but maybe it did. Okay. Because now, yeah, so okay, there's teach more Java. And now I need to fix get appointments. Instead of the word, I will rename all of that to owner. And what does this do? Well, it calls get, does an HTTP get of the URL with the parameters owner, and the owner is passed in. It checks to see if there was a non 200 response, and if so, then it goes and gets the content. Parse dictionary entry, I don't need that. Instead, I just want to return the content. I'll inline that, so I'll inline that so it's a little easier to read. Okay. So what's happening behind the scenes here is that it's calling my servlet. So now when I run it, now notice I have not had so it passes now. I have not had to make any changes to my servlet because I wrote unit tests for them. I was pretty confident they worked okay. So this is nice. Right now I can iterate on the client side code, knowing that my server side code is probably pretty correct. Okay. Gee, I think I've got it. So what so what I've done, and then this is kind of neat. I've just now written an integration test that posts a new appointment to my appointment book, and then and then verifies that when I get all the appointments, it contains the owner and description. So this is kind of neat. And let's see this last one. This last one is when I try to post with no parameters, I get I get a string that contains word. Well, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this. String contain the parameter word is missing instead of just precondition failed. That's fine. So it probably works a little differently now. Contains string precondition failed. Add another those things. Does it look better now? Yep. So I went pretty quickly here because I do want everybody to get to the mob programming. But I'm getting this connection or this error while testing connection refused. What do you think the connection refused means?
Like someone else is using that same resource.
No, more likely it's that your jetty isn't running. So I'll quit my jetty, and then I will let's see here. I'll run test 2 here, and sure enough, connection refused.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, right. Well, here again, distributed programming. You need to have 2 programs running at the same time. This is a thing that tests your tests. It runs the client, and there's no server on the back end. It's going to fail because I couldn't connect to the server because it's the server that does a whole bunch of the lifting.
Okay, I need to go fix my server side stuff first, and then I'll try it again.
Yep. That's why I recommend starting with unit tests, is that it's just a faster feedback loop. Okay, let's see here. Now, if it even work? It's connection refused. Well, that's not very interesting. Okay. I don't think this is very interesting testing. I don't even know. So I don't even know what that is. I'm going to do that. Okay. So all those tests ought to pass. Nice. Okay, so basically, this one, there wasn't a lot of new code we had to write. It was really kind of massaging the code that was already there. A lot of renaming of things. Make sure you're passing in the right, parameters and everything like that. I'm going to commit this code, and while I'm doing that, any questions?
I guess the only question I have is, are we moving into mob programming?
Just about. There's one other thing I want to show you, and I'm not gonna write any code. I'm just gonna point you to things. With the modified with the evolve servlet, with the servlet updates. Okay. So we modified the servlet, which runs on the server side. we modified this appointment book REST client to start speaking the language of appointment books instead of dictionaries. There's one other piece of code that you need to modify, and that is your main method. That's your project 4. I'm not going to go into this now because, darn it, you should know how to parse a command line. But that's what it does. It parses the command line and then interacts with the server via the client. So there's really nothing terribly special here. You need to take out some of this code related to the dictionary. But otherwise, what you need to do is use the create. Sorry, where is it? The create appointment. The create appointment method to create appointments, and then use the get appointments method to get the to get appointments, and then use your pretty printer to format that stuff. Plus, you'll need to add all the support for like querying between 2 dates, and of course entering your times and everything like that. But you all that can then be what you focus on next. The question is most of the project a massage? No, because basically I've been doing all of the massaging tonight, and this I think will help get you started. But then there's a little bit of wash, rinse, and repeat. So presumably, adding things like the dates to the appointment is kind of wash, rinse, repeat. But you'll need to decide how to validate them and everything like that. And then the querying is new, so that's net new. And then you'll need to figure out how to make your text dumper and your pretty printers work not with files, but with the data that's passed back and forth from the server to the client. So I hope I've gotten you off to a good start tonight, and maybe sort of like give you the next increment to get yourself going. But don't worry, there's plenty here. So I don't think it's going to be a breeze by any means.
Did you say that project 4, the main class, as in project 4.java, will be pretty similar to project 3.java?
Yeah, it has command line parsing is command line parsing, right? So as far as the how you do that, it'll be the same. The logic of it will be different because you're interacting with the server, but the classes that you're using are things like your text parser and your pretty printer. You've used them already. You may need to modify them though because you're not working with files anymore. You're working with data that comes back like in a string and stuff like that.
And I seem to recall earlier in the lecture you said something about how there currently wasn't a main function because of the fact that it is sort of asynchronous.
There's not a main function that you write on the server side. There is a main function that you write on the client side.
Okay.
There are two different Java programs, and and so then there's your servlet, which runs on the server side, and it's actually the main. They're buried inside Jetty's code, right? So every Java program has a main method. That's where the execution starts, but it's buried inside some Jetty code, and then Jetty figures out where your application is and routes things to the server. But you don't write that main method. The Jetty folks.
We actually have 2 folders for this?
No, it's all in one project, and this is the interesting thing, right? It's one Maven project that actually builds 2 artifacts: the war file that gets deployed to Jetty and that client jar that gets run.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
So a couple questions then.
Yep.
First of all, what is our post in project 4? What's the post supposed to return? I could just return the whole appointment book. I could just return the appointment. Is there anything?
It's not specified.
Okay.
So you can do what you want. You could, or you just like say successful, or you can say nothing. There's no, there's nothing there.
As long as we get the 200 status code, we're good.
Yeah, and the side effect of having the appointment added to the appointment book.
Yes. And then I'll get it. I'll remember in a moment.
Yeah. And there is a Project 4 channel in Slack that I set up last week. People have already been asking some questions, good questions at that. And so then, please be sure to check that out.
Yeah, so the other one is when you're calling, when we're returning from the gets, are we allowed to return, are we supposed to return the whole appointment from text parser dump or just the appointments, because the instructions reference
Oh.
the appointments, but I assume I can dump the owner name in there with the appointments like I would like with.
Yes, the intention is that it's the same format as what you used to write to a file, which would include the owner.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what we would parse for your text parser. So the goal here, or rather the intent, is that you don't need to modify, you don't need to change your text format. Now you're just writing your text format to an HTTP response as opposed to a file. Okay. Do you want a quick break before we do mob programming? Or actually, we should do that. Take 10 minutes, clear your head. We'll move on to something different. Actually, here's what. How about? I was wondering, should we assign the mobs first? Nah. We all need a break. Take a break at 8 o'clock. We'll reconvene. I've got a brief video about mob programming. We'll talk about it a little bit. That should take like 10 minutes, and then we'll dive into it. I know it's it's 8 o'clock, after 8 o'clock, and we're just getting started on the programming. But I wanted to make sure to spend enough time working on Project 4 so that you guys get off to a good start. So let's take a 10-minute break. I'll pause the recording, and I will see you at 8 o'clock. So first portion of class tonight was dedicated to Project 4, exploring that. Hopefully it gives you a good start. Put that aside. Now it's time for something different. So the subtext of this course is all about exploring contemporary software development techniques. And so whether it's unit testing, doing test-driven development, or pair programming, we explore these things, right? I mean, I want I want to provide sort of a learning environment and a laboratory for you to not just write code, but to explore software development and software engineering. And so over the last couple of weeks, we've been experiencing pair programming, and tonight I'd like to I'd like to explore begin exploring mob programming. So I've got a video here. Let's see here. This is it's on YouTube, so I'm going to full screen things, and I don't believe there's any audio with this video. So this is this is a video that does a bunch of still frames about of what mob programming is. So in mob programming, I guess what you're not seeing here is there's a projector that's attached to these laptops, and there's a big projector that the entire team is sitting around. And this team, they don't have a daily stand-up. They just come into the office and they get to work. And what do? Well, you've got everybody who needs to be there sitting around the table with their laptops. They have the code up, and a big a big screen so everybody can see it. And just like in pair programming, you have people who are drivers, but there are multiple navigators, right? There are multiple people that are looking at the code, trying to improve it, looking for bugs, figuring out how to do it. And there are other roles. There's a product owner who is the person that is ultimately looking to inform what should be built. And then in a in less than 2 hours, the the team is able to implement a small feature altogether. The product owner takes a look and says, "Wow, this is great." As you can see throughout the day, it doesn't mean that everybody is sitting there all the time. It doesn't mean that everybody is driving. Actually, I'm watching Chris, who's this guy here with the hair. It's really funny to watch his body language. I've never noticed that before. He's sometimes he's like bored. Now he's like engaged. Now he's taking his phone, stuff like that. But it's just people working together. And people doing their thing. Here is a lunch break. Everybody's off, doing something else. That guy's probably checking his email or his, we'll say his stocks, and probably not calling this bookie. He's doing his thing. Okay, and now it's dull. People are starting to come back, and now work begins again. And so people are again working together, collaborating together. Now that guy is driving. they're doing the work, and yeah, this is the team working together as an actual team. People are engaged. People are happy. Everybody gets to contribute. Everybody gets to see, and everybody gets to learn. That's the thing about mob programming that really resonates with me is that the learning. There's right one. Someone had a question. Listen, there's somebody there who can quick Google the answer. People are up and around and moving, coming and going as they need to, but the work continues. The whole idea is that you get this momentum with mob programming because you have many hands on the, many eyes on the problem, many hands on the solution, and all the expertise is there, and it's not held in the minds of just one or two people. Everybody gets to see the entire implementation, and this makes the team and ultimately the software very resilient. Right, someone can go on vacation, and it's not like, oh, I can't work on that today because the expert's not here. Nope, everybody has equal footing and equal expertise. So yes, all the people working on the same problem at the same time on the same computer. And here it is. It's the end of the day, and everybody's worked together, and now they're done, and they go home. So you can watch more about Woody or Legend of Korra too. Now you get a little insight into the kids watching my YouTube account. Anyway. So that's what you'll be experimenting with tonight. So, yeah, kids. Okay, yeah. No, it's cool. Avatar was awesome. Legend of Korra was really good too. Highly recommended. Super fun. So tonight what we'll be doing is we'll be breaking up into mobs, and we will be working on their kata. And this is an RPN calculator. RPN stands for reverse Polish notation. So the whole idea is this is a postfix calculator. So when you give it inputs like 25 and then divide, that's 25 divided by 5. Sorry, 20 divided by 5 equals 4. Cool. Anyway, so what we'll be working on this RPN calculator, and I will post the link there. It's relatively straightforward to understand. And I guess you can have like a simple expression like this, but the expressions can get more complex. We've got 4, 2 plus, 3 minus, and so then you're working with a stack. So then this is the same as saying 4, then 2, and then add those two together, and take the result of that. And then 3, and then subtract that. So it ends up being 4 plus 2 minus 3, and then the result is 3. Similarly, you can get more complex there. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create some breakout rooms. Let's see here. Let's get 5 to 6 people in each room. I'm going to let you all choose where you break out. Before I open the rooms, though, any questions about the kata or any initial observations about pair programming that you wanted to share, or maybe some hopes, fears, questions about pair programming mob programming before you go into it. Okay, yes, okay, do we generate using create kata project? Yes. So here's what I'd like you to do. In your mob, decide amongst yourselves, do you want to go through the overhead of creating yet another public GitHub repository we want to share, or does someone have an existing one that they can leverage? And then please use the create kata project to create a new Maven project for this kata. Question, how long should each of us take turns being the driver? Let's see here, with 5, maybe about 7 minutes apiece. Actually, you know what? I'm going to add another room. Let's see, because there are 36 people. That's an average of 5. Let's try that. And so then please try to keep the rooms the same size. So this is like aim for 5 people in a room, and there'll be one group of 6. And let's have each person somewhere, but between 7, maybe 10 minutes driving. But it's different in a mob because even if you're not driving, you've got lots of people around you providing advice, and looking up solutions and things like that. But yes, try to pass the keyboard around. Try to get more people on the problem. So please create figure out which repository you're going to use. Create a new project. Make sure to add people collaborators, or if you want to use Code with Me, which is that IntelliJ plugin for sharing code or collaborating on code, you can do that too. And just like with pair programming, the way that you're assessed on this isn't about whether or not your code works or get your code to compile. It's about the experience that you had and your reflection on that experience. And so then at the end, so then there is a quiz that opened up tonight on D2L that basically asks you the same questions that did for pair programming about your mob programming experience. And remember, there will also be another opportunity for mob programming next week. And so then, if you're done for tonight, or maybe you want to sit this one out, or maybe you're not terribly satisfied with what happened tonight, you can always come back and do it again next week. Okay. Any questions before we go into breakout rooms? Let's mob program for about an hour or so, a little after 9 o'clock. I'll call everybody back, and then we'll do a quick debrief about what people learn. If anyone wants to show off the code, that'd be great. That'd be cool. And then we'll call it a night. So it'll probably end tonight around 9:30. It's a long one. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. The rooms are open. Video back on here now that it's dark. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay. So then, you just spent the better part of an hour doing some mob programming on the kata where you build an RPN calculator. I'm really curious to hear about what your experiences were, and so I'll just go through the rooms in order. And ask for a quick brief report out on sort of what you found, and if there's any code that you want to show off, that would be cool. So we'll start with room 1, which was Cody, Eric, Matt, and Shane.
Sure. I can. Or no, go ahead, Cody.
We got a lot of code written. I feel like we're a couple lines away from at least starting to have it down. We are putting everything into a vector and then parsing that vector, which is new to 3 of us. Is that right? I think vectors are new to 3 of us, so that's cool. But yeah, we used Code with Me, and I had my screen shared, and so we were all watching the code happening, and a few of us got a chance to drive. It's pretty cool. I think, oh man, I can't believe the rest of this up. I think it's Eric. Am I crazy? Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, it's Eric.
Eric was doing a lot of the magic with the vector stuff, and it was cool because I think more than getting this program down, those of us who didn't know what that was got a chance to see it in action and understand it a little bit better. So that's cool, at least from my perspective. And then, yeah, I don't really have anything else. I don't want to show off code because it doesn't work, but it's there. It's pretty.
Right on. Excellent. Okay. Anybody else from room 2 want to contribute anything? Sorry, room 1 want to contribute anything?
It was just one thing was nice, was that it's a little bit easier to have people look stuff up, because if it's just pair programming, it's hard to look up while you're trying to help navigate. But with the group, one of us could go we forgot that parseInt was integer.parseInt, so we were able to look that up more easily and stuff like that. So that was nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun with the parseInt one specifically, because the driver just kept going, and we just said, all right, I'll go look that up and see what makes that work, and just type it in to patch it real quick.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Let's move on to room 2, who is Andrew, Huidong, Jacob, Joshua, and Y.
Yeah, we tried to get Code
Wait.
With Me up and running again.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Once we did get it up and running, it was pretty good. I think we had some Code With Me version issues that was making it difficult. Like everyone was on different versions. But once we did get it up, we were able to implement some test cases, unit tests together, and start working on the actual problem. So that went well. I know you probably want to add some more, Andrew.
Yeah. Basically, there was a little bit of setup issues with Git and with Code With Me, but it was an interesting experience using Code With Me. I think in the past, I actually haven't used Code With Me, but there's a feature in Zoom to actually like hand control of mouse and keyboard over. And I think I used that. That's obviously a lot less flexible than Code With Me because it means that I wouldn't be able to do anything. In that case, it would be a little bit more of a clear mob programming driver navigator kind of situation, I feel, because all of us were actually coding at the same time, even if it was kind of getting a little wonky in certain places. I think possibly because I'm using a Vim emulator in IntelliJ for certain commands. So just because I like to keep that muscle memory up. But anyways, it was interesting. I thought that having, more than one brain usually helps. So we were able to basically, like, whenever I came up with an idea, it was like immediate feedback in terms of, is this a good one or a bad one? And likewise, I tried to do the same for them as well. Yeah.
Cool. Inbo's from room 2 want to weigh in on your experiences. Moving on to room 3, who was Bennett, Shihui, Joseph, Melch, the Melchinator, the Melchter, Yiming, and Zach.
Yeah, it was a good experience. We ended up going with the, I forget what, Code With Me, with IntelliJ. That was interesting. It works well. It is funny. It's like its pluses and minuses with the Google Drive aspect. I think it definitely makes it harder to do more of a like Andrew was mentioning, more of a mob programming approach, because it's kind of like everyone driving the car. So we definitely had a lot of backseat driving. But it's a different flavor of mob, it felt like. But yeah, it was interesting. I appreciate the approach of so many people and so many ideas. And I think at times it can be hard when you have so many people and so many ideas to distill it into one solution and make sure everybody's on the same page. But I think after a little bit, you get to figure out what's going on and all that, and it was pretty effective.
Nice.
Yeah. So let me share the screen real quick so we can just show off what we have so far. Give me a moment. Share the screen. Do that one. And share. All right. Can you see this? Hopefully you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that came up that I thought that I was curious how it was going to work, and it was fascinating, is that one of the strengths of mob programming is the long-term resilience of the project. The fact that when you come back in a week, everybody's worked on this, so you can talk to everyone, and if someone's gone, then you've got a lot of people you can talk to about something, and it's really the long-term resilience of the project is one of the big benefits, which obviously we don't get to test here much because we're in a very short span. So one of the mistakes I kind of made in a short span was I had this really cool, I tried to take the basically your interface function passing thing, and I realized you could map your characters to functions, which is a bad idea because we just did it, so I barely knew how to do it, and it took us more of the time than it should have to get it working, which was probably a downfall on my part. One of the big problems though was that in the middle of it, nobody knew what I was doing but me, which for a single session seemed like a problem, but it was one of the things where if I had been tasked with writing this and I had written this is how I would have written it. And if someone else, one of them had tried to come in later and understand what was going on, without having been sitting there working through it as a group, everybody else would have been lost, including possibly me when I came back. And so by having everyone there, this is one of those things that probably when we came back to it, if we were working on an actual project, people remember that it came up and know how it worked and could come work in this code if they needed to. Anyways, so it's again, it's hard to test long-term resilience, but it's one of those cases where I think if we hadn't had a group there, the long-term resilience would be much more difficult.
Great. Oh, that's a good observation. Excellent. Yeah. Well, it's not compiling right now. I was going to ask if it can run, but it looks like not. You're still in the middle of things. So
No,
nice.
we tore out the metal chunk of it that was working to go put something in that's not working. So
I think that's called refactoring. Awesome. Okay. Cool. Nice. Anybody else from room 3? Okay. Room 4. A quattro of Balaji, Dylan, Jonas, Matthew, and Michael.
Yeah, we did pretty well. We had some initial issues of some loss in audio contact, and we tried getting Code With Me to work, and we couldn't quite get everybody in. Apparently with the license we had, we can only get 3 people in. We had 5 people, so that wasn't working. And then with the people that were in, they didn't have terminal access, so they couldn't like run to test the program and stuff. So we eventually boarded and went to the screen share, commit, and pull strategy, and it went pretty well. We basically got the project working. I have it pulled up. I can share it and show off what we did. We also did a stack approach where you push arguments onto the stack and then pop them off with the operators. So just go to edit configurations. This is the sample from this line here. So go ahead and run it. We got 141. Yeah, I think we did pretty well overall as a team, and it was pretty fun, in my opinion.
Excellent.
I think I can take responsibility for why the Code With Me thing didn't work. I'm not quite sure exactly what I did wrong when I created it, but it only let me add 3 people, and then despite giving them terminal access, they weren't able to run it or add any configurations. And we didn't run into that problem with pair programming last week. So I think that I just did something wrong with the configuration.
Yeah, good to know. Live and learn. Well, you guys work it out. Cool.
But I think that our code actually works. We didn't really get a chance to test it, but with this stack method, I can't remember who came up with this idea, but it was pretty smart.
Nice. Cool. That's great progress all around. Okay. Anybody else from room 4 want to share their thoughts?
I just wanted to mention that it helped to use Code With Me and Zoom, because then you could share a screen on Zoom and you could use it as a projector if anyone wanted to put something up.
Yeah, nice. Good observation. Okay. Room 6 with Harsha, Pooja, Rucha, and Siri.
Hi, David. Yeah, it went pretty well. So initially, it was difficult coordinating, but once we got hold of it, we were able to coordinate, mostly towards the end of the time. Yeah. So it was nice that we all got to work together. Yeah.
How did your
And we actually,
experiences... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, we followed a test-driven development. We split the cases. We first started with testing and then went towards developing, and yeah, that was pretty fun.
That's a question
And
for...
one of the things
Go
we
ahead.
noticed were, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, and I was just adding to that. One of the things I noticed was when you write test case, we have like at least 4 basic mathematical operations, right? So we just spread up. Oh, okay, you do addition. You write code for multiplication, and when we the code was written in just like a half a second, kind of. So it was
Yeah, we did that.
really fast paced, and yeah, I like that idea. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we actually didn't wait for someone to complete. We just split there, then and there, and said, "Hey, do this, do that, do that."
Interesting. Well, it sounds like it worked. That's great.
Yeah, it took some time. Yeah. Did you have any question?
Well, I was curious, and anybody in your room can answer this. How did your experience as mob programming differ from your experience as pair programming? Is there any?
It's like, yeah, you have instant help. Like you're wondering what's wrong. I mean, you can't see something that's wrong, but someone else gets hold of it, and they can clearly see that this is wrong. So you have someone communicating with you constantly and telling you may be wrong here, and this works better, or some other suggestions. So that one was good.
Nice.
Yeah, adding to that, I just I also noticed something about different from pair programming to mob programming, is that in pair programming we are just two people, and we couldn't see some basic things that we cannot even think of. But in mob programming we are more than two people, right? So we can address those issues very quickly, and we did that very, yeah. It was like, just like as I said, it was very fast paced. So yeah, it was pretty fun.
Cool.
Even I want to add to Pooja and Harsh. It was very different experience, mob programming, but it is more fun than pair programming because we have more source of inputs. So I think I enjoyed mob programming a lot more than pair programming.
Great.
Yeah, and also everyone has different logic of solving same program. So that is also a good addition of thinking differently. Like we can solve this program in different ways. So that is also a plus point of this mob programming. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I thought
Those
it
are
was
awesome
interesting.
observations.
I kind of have a different approach to it. I honestly felt like mob programming was good, but it was a lot easier to get lost and kind of just lose focus. I kind of understand from the video why that guy was just stretching in the back. I definitely had some stretching moments, and I felt like it was a lot easier to focus and be more productive with two people personally.
Interesting. Okay. Well, great. I'm just curious about these things, about what your experiences are. There aren't right or wrong answers or anything. I'm not looking for anything in particular. What I really want is for you to experience it and then think about it, and then you'll have an opportunity to reflect on your quiz. Well, let's finish off with room 7 then. We've got David, we've got Lee, and Michael, and Mike, and Sai, and Yufei. So what were your experiences mob programming? What did you do? What did you learn? What did you see?
I think we had a lot of fun with Code With Me. I think like a lot of other folks, previously when I did pair programming, at least we didn't use Code With Me, and so we had very regimented like back and forth. But the way we were doing it was very fluid. It's like somebody would be like, "Oh, I know that," and they would jump in and write the thing, or somebody would be writing a test while somebody else was writing the function for it. It was really cool. It was really interesting.
I agree.
Cool. And how far did you get in the code? How do you feel that you that you did in terms of was it efficient to have so many people on the with eyes on the screen?
I think we had a little bit of little bit chaos at first as we were all kind of getting settled in. We didn't get as far as I kind of hoped we would have, but I think I learned a lot from just watching other people code stuff, and yeah.
Nice.
I think we all understand exactly how to approach this problem and how to code it, but somehow we got stuck into something else that doesn't really, like, it just feels like not supposed to be stuck into it, but then we just somehow like get into it like for longer and longer, and just like, yeah, but still it's a really good experience.
Great. Excellent. So thank you so much, for staying kind of late tonight to experience some mob programming. You'll have another opportunity next week. And I look forward to hearing what the experiences are of those people. So excellent. Okay. Well, that's everything for tonight. We covered a lot. Lots of stuff on Project 4, and so then please review the video. Feel free to look at my code to get ideas to sort of, if you're not too sure where to start, or you're like, wait, I know he did something with that thing. Want to go back and look for it? That's why I do it. That's why I do it, and that's why I put it up there for everybody to see. So have a great week, everybody. As always, please reach out on Slack or an email if you have questions. Please leverage the channels so that you can get advantage of the knowledge, or take advantage of the knowledge that other people have about the projects, about how things should work, and stay safe. Next week's going to be a fun one. We're going to be breaking ground on learning about Android development. And so that's it's always cool to see something different here at the end of the course. Have a great week, everybody. I will see you later.